All right, everybody. I'm very sorry about some of the problems I had with technology today. I'm trying out this new program that allows me to show up on the screen and um, record what's on my screen at the same time. So, like this little picture up in the corner here. Um, what I want to talk about tonight as we begin session one of our AP exam preparation period are the command verbs. And the command verbs are something that is obviously going to be very important. We don't know how many questions there's going to be right now as of this recording, but I do know that they'll use them, and I want to talk a little bit about them and what I've seen in our class over the past year of testing you. So, first one on here is calculate. This is just going to be something mathematical, and remember the test is open note. But even the traditional test allows you to use the formula sheet, which that's something that can really back you up with this calculation command verb. The formulas we talked about, there's a little bit about water potential. We just finished Hardy-Weinberg, and there's some statistics. There's some surface area to volume ratio type stuff on there. But I have a feeling the questions this year are going to be really big idea questions. So some of those things, as you can, plainly see, are very detailed, okay? And some of them are more big picture. I think the evolution stuff's probably, well, actually, I'm wrong on that. The evolution stuff is not on there, so scratch that. There won't be any Hardy-Weinberg questions. But nevertheless, there are calculations that are part of the class. So that's just mathematical. That's really all I've got to say about that. Predict is a command verb I think we have a good chance of seeing. Okay? Predict is going to ask you something happens. Okay? We had a lot of in the unit on biochemistry. There are questions that say a plant is grown in soil with no blank. Let's say nitrogen. What would you predict it has a hard time, or difficult time, if you want to be more formal, creating? Which family of macromolecules? Well, you have to know which set of macromolecules have nitrogen in them. So when you know that, you'll go, oh, nitrogen, that's going to be our proteins. So plants that don't have nitrogen have a very difficult time. So that's a prediction, okay? I don't want to go into a plant lesson, but that's a prediction. All right, justify. I find that teenagers are experts at justification or justifying. Come into my classroom, Mr. Sater, I need to run out in the hall, blah, 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 blah. No, you need to be here. You'll start justifying reasons you should go out in the hall to me. Well, I left something in the other room. It's my expensive phone. I just took a test. I didn't have time to go to the bathroom. So you're justifying. You're giving me reasons why your choice is right. Okay, so what kind of questions might we see on here? They might give you an experiment and say, justify, how would you justify changing some variable? Okay, they might say that they might ask you to choose a solution to a problem and explain what might fix that problem. Okay, propose is the same thing as justify, I think. But the difference is you're coming up with your a whole new solution to a problem. So propose is going to be something more along that line. All right, let's go down a little bit to explain here. Let me wipe my highlights. All right. Explain can be, you have this little word, but boy, it can probably really involve a lot of work. Okay, I remember we had a test question this year. It was explain photosynthesis, and that's a lot. Okay, that's a really tightly dialed in question. But explain, you better give them everything you got. You better start with the sun and go all the way to sugar. Talk about all the byproducts, talk about all the different cellular processes that are happening. Explain is a big one. If you see explain, don't get lazy. You know you've got to do a lot. Okay. Perform. Perform is probably going to be in our world something mathematical. So they might ask you to perform a statistical analysis to see if experimental results are reliable or something like that. They might ask you to perform a genetics analysis to see if a trait moves through generations in different ways. Let me shut off my dings there. Specify and identify. I think these ones are pretty similar, and I don't see them coming up a lot on this compact exam. They said the questions were going to be Google proof. I think specify would be something like specify which organelle contains DNA. Okay. Specify where transcription happens. So that is short, one-word answers that you should support in detail if needed, okay? Because specify can also become bigger. Specify what problems there are with this experiment. Maybe it has a bad control, and you got a bad control. That's not enough. You got to say why. Identify is basically picking something out. Identify where in the cell sugar is made. Identify which one of these traits will be passed on to offspring. Okay, I don't see a lot of these happening. And just remember, when they ask you the question, big case up here, then down below, they may have 3 of these different types of command verbs. So there might be A, explain, B, identify, C, describe. So watch for that. Sometimes on your identify questions and other questions that I've given in class this year, you guys would do a great job of identifying some things. So I might say specify or identify or explain the differences between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. And what I saw a lot was prokaryotes are smaller and don't have complex organelles. All their DNA is, in a small region, and it's circular. We could go on and on about that, but you would not say which one was which. A lot of students would answer, identify the differences between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. One is smaller, one is bigger. Which one? Don't assume that the grader is going to know what you're talking about, especially when you only have this small 45-minute test. I'm very curious to know how many questions they're going to have on it. All right. Describe. Describe can be a scary one too, okay? So just with describe, that can get pretty big pretty quick, okay? So for describe, it says there, give an account. So they're going to basically, if I said describe the cell membrane, there's a lot there. Okay, it's composed of a phospholipid bilayer. One end is hydrophobic, one end is hydrophilic. The hydrophilic ends are the tails. You need to give them as much as you can. Okay, they could ask you to narrow that down. I'm sure they're going to. Describe ways you could change the experiment. Describe errors the researcher made. Describe the problems involved here. For me, I think this test, and it's very early, this is just what I think, is really going to have a lot of problem-based questions. Experiment is done. What problems do you see with it? What interpretations can you make from it? I think we're going to see a lot of science process skills, because I think that's one of the most important skills that you want any science student, whether it's physics, chemistry, whatever, to be able to do. So I think that's going to be one of the things they really want to measure. I think pose is probably not one we're going to see very much. Pose a explanation. That just means like, this didn't work the way they thought it. pose a possible reason why the cell couldn't divide. Okay. Pose a method a scientist could use to slow down mitosis. Okay. So you could basically propose. I think of the word propose. State. State can be a pretty big one. It's probably going to be state the reasons. State's probably going to be a pretty, it's kind of tricky because I could just say state your name, but this is AP. We know it's going to be big. So the big thing with state is probably going to be you're going to have to state and back it up with reasons. It could be small, but I don't think we're looking at a test that's going to ask you small Google-based answers. It is open note, so they're not going to say things like state where most cellular respiration happens. And, we're not going to just go, oh, mitochondria, I stated it. I think we're going to see big Google-proof answers on this test. So I think we're going to see a lot of describes and explains. All right, I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. I know this was pretty minimal for today. I wasn't really able to get the technology working the way I should. And I did ask everybody to join into a remind. So in that remind, I really need you to be in there in case we have Schoology problems. I can put out what I want you to do by remind. I don't plan to text you nonstop remind messages. That's not the point of my remind I ask you to get into. So if you haven't gotten into the remind, please head for the updates on Schoology. That's the little post-it note looking thing. And the code to join the remind is there. We're really getting into this now. The governor's got to shut down even longer. And, this is our new normal. So I know a lot of you are out there working and things like that. I know a lot of you are trapped in the home. I'd like to meet with everybody on Friday in a class meeting. I'll put up a poll on what are the best times to do that. If not, if you can't make it, just call and leave me a voicemail that says, hey, I couldn't make it because, and I'll give you credit for that. All right, I'm going to probably put this into an ed puzzle so that you can, so I have evidence that you watched it. I'll get back with you a little bit more on biochemistry and other exam review topics, guys. All right, stay safe, stay healthy. I miss you all. We'll talk later.